Hello. So this is a different kind of video. This is a different kind of drawing. I've been doing a lot of paper artwork as opposed to digital, and that's primarily because I have spent the last 2 years doing school again, because I am just so good at finding things to add value to my existence. So you'll get to see all of the beautiful things, like my horribly scuffed setup for where I draw things, and occasionally my receding hairline. So please enjoy. There's a lot that went wrong with making this drawing. The first and least visible problem is that the footage of this one video is over 230 gigabytes because I'm an idiot and I recorded this with my phone in 1080p, 60 frames a second, and for some reason I did not think ahead of time to reduce the frame rate of the recording, which I should have realized when I noticed how quickly my battery was draining from recording this on my phone. Sony Xperia 5V, good camera, but like the lowest frame rate you can do is like 20, which is better, but can't record more than like, an hour of footage before the battery runs out, and that's with it being plugged into my computer. Granted, no reasonable human would record over an hour of 60 frames a second straight unless they were doing what I was doing. I recorded this on my phone, on a tripod on my desk, so the angle isn't fantastic. It changes frequently because this drawing has taken a while, so consistency between the camera angles is not great. And of course I can bump into it and wiggle it, waggle it, and other things. My room has awful lighting. Obviously, someone's bedroom is probably not the greatest recording studio, especially in my case, because my desk is up against the wall and my ceiling light is behind me. So if I use that, I cast a gigantic shadow over my own drawing, which isn't the worst thing because there's enough reflective light across the room to keep the scene well lit. But I also used my lamp, which is just a desk lamp, with a piece of white paper on it. That piece of paper has been on there for probably nearly a decade now. That paper has lasted as my light diffuser, but the room is still terribly lit. Good enough for the video, but not ideal. My desk is made of glass, and it has one position. And if you've ever drawn anything, you probably think of drawing tables as being angled for your posture. But also, when you draw things like flat in front of you, your view of it is skewed, where things farther away from you, you might draw bigger because it's farther away from you, or you might draw it smaller, one or the other. And that could make mistakes. Thankfully, I don't think, out of all of the mistakes I made drawing this drawing, that wasn't one of them. And I think that's because I drew standing up most of the time, and I sketched out, as you can see at the beginning of this video. Another issue is that the paper I use is gigantic. It's way too big for for my desk. The paper is about 20 inches by 13 inches or something. So it's big. I usually draw on just plain old A4. I don't know what real serious art people would use. I just use what I have, and that's copy paper. It gives you an impression of just how much I care about making my art look good. That I draw on copy paper that's probably more than 5 years old. It's just paper we've had like around. I don't know where this paper came from. I just use it. A legitimate mistake I made with the drawing is, and you may notice this, I'm not going to stop the video to point it out, but you'll if you look for it, you'll notice it. There's a leaf that goes over the sleeve of Charlotte, who is the person being drawn. And like an idiot, I filled in the line work for her sleeve over the leaf, which should be not visible, should be under the leaf. So that is probably the most glaring literal mistake with the drawing. And of course the greatest mistake is just deciding that I had to make this drawing in the first place. So, about the drawing, I guess we should get into that. Normally when I make art stuff, and like I promise I have been drawing things, just not digital things, but when I do speed art, I tend to just put music in the background. But because this video took me so goddamn long to make, I felt like doing some commentary on it and just talking about, you know, things I did during it, my thoughts on it, and just some other things that sort of came to mind as I was drawing and recording and editing the thing. So the paper itself is 19 inches, 19 and 15/16 inches tall and 12 3/4 inches wide. I also filled in a 1-inch border around the margin because I have this problem where if I don't limit the margin of the drawing, then I just like can't draw it. I get the proportions and the scale all wrong, and like I just can't frame anything if I don't like physically, literally see a frame in the drawing. Maybe that's just the psychological warfare of drawing anime girls for the last 20 years of my life. So I sketched this part using Faber-Castell pencils, mostly in 2H and 4H. I do have other pencils from Staedtler, but I don't use those anymore. I don't know why. Probably because all of those other H's are kind of useless to me. I like 2H and 4H. 4H is pretty light, but that makes it good for sketching. 2H is like sort of my standby for sketching. I find anything darker than that, and the eraser just doesn't it doesn't penetrate. It doesn't have the right stats for it because I'm stupid. The line art I filled in with my Muji pen. Muji is a brand that primarily is targeted towards people who want stationary work. They're not, as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I'm aware, they're not marketed for art people. But all of the line work and most of the shading, the backfill was done with a Pigma pen, Pigma Micron. Again, probably not the right tool for the job. But the line art I did with my pen, just a black ink pen from Muji, 0.38 millimeter. And I like that pen. Sadly, I don't think they sell the aluminum body that I have, that I got from them, because mercifully, they're one of the only like Asian stationery companies that has a store in Canada. I've tried looking for Pigma products. I'll get to this later, but there are some things that I want to buy that you just can't. Or they're like, you can, but they're from like a US third party middleman. And the shipping fees is just like ridiculous. Like, you're telling me I'm gonna pay $30 for like a pen holder, and it's gonna cost me like $25 for shipping just for this one thing. Those are the things that like I can afford and I would probably enjoy, but like, it can wait. I'm fine drawing with just my pen. Speaking of pens, the Sakura Pigma Microns, got them at Michael's. Those good old 40% off one item coupons that they occasionally put out are cash. Dala, holla holla. I don't use them super often because I just don't like drawing with my fine liners. There's something about the way they feel and like the fact that you can't really get varied line thicknesses with managing your pressure. You buy them in packs and you get multiple sizes, but I just sort of end up using like 2 sizes, either like super fine for the details or just the biggest felt marker for filling in the backgrounds. I'm sure you would probably want a brush pen for that, like a literal brush, but in the style of a pen, and they make those. The only reason I don't have those is because I find the prospect of refilling them to be less convenient than Microns, and we'll talk about that later. So I started this drawing on December 30th, and I did not finish it until May this year. So I started it in 2024, and I didn't finish it until I almost until I graduated. I basically graduated at that point in May because my in-person classes with grades attached to them, they were done in exams, like they were done in April. What I was doing in May was an internship it was school related, but not really something to be super concerned about. So when May rolled around, I had time to start drawing again. And that's when I finally finished this. So yeah, I started playing Hello Charlotte sort of late 2024. I can't remember when I started it. It was probably December, like start of December I played them, and then every week I'd play a new one. And it wasn't until pretty much New Year or maybe around Christmas or something, I finished episode 3, and then I started this drawing. So what is this drawing? So this is the thing you're looking at is Charlotte. Charlotte's the main character from the series. Without getting into spoilers, she is essentially the main character. There are other characters, to put it bluntly. Specifically, this is the Charlotte who you see in episodes 1 and 2. There are flowers in this drawing. Cursory Google searching has revealed to me through the will of the world that these are angels' trumpets flowers. They are depicted on the cover or the title screen of episode 1. And most of the design cues for this Charlotte incarnation were taken from the episode 1 artwork. The thing in the background, which we will eventually get to see, is Freya, or Frey, a character from episodes 1 and 2. You may be wondering why they end up looking like that. And that's a good question. Hopefully someone knows the answer. But also vaguely inspired by the introductory artwork from episode 2, where you see Charlotte and Freya. And I think that was sort of the catalyst for wanting to make this drawing, because I like the games and I like that art. And that artwork I saw in episode 2 was pretty much what sold me on the games. Like that. It was that easy. It doesn't take a lot to sell me on a game, you know. I literally bought Etrian Odyssey 4 because I played the demo, and in the demo, you go through the first strata and you hear that song for the Lush Woodlands, and that I just stood still and listened to it, and from that moment I knew I had to buy that game and play it. And I did the same thing when I got to the 5th stratum and you heard that song. I literally stopped, put the DS down, and just listened to it. That's how good it was. And so with this game, I saw the artwork in episode 2 and I was like, this is a game made by an art person and not a fake ass, stupid, pretentious art person. I don't want to be super mean because, I mean, I mean, maybe the author sees himself as like a high society artist, like philosophical art person. Who knows? Maybe that's how it is. I certainly don't see myself that way. I see myself as roadside garbage who just so happens to be good at drawing anime girls, among other things. So I haven't done digital art in a while, I'll be honest. I can't even remember the last time I opened Krita. And it's not because I dislike digital art. It's mostly because physical art is so convenient, and I like it more. There's a difference between disliking something and liking something else more, I feel. With physical artwork, it's just so convenient to just pick up a pen and start drawing and to get results that like work. Whereas with digital, there's so much fiddling with like brush sizes and what brush you're going to use and layering and like resolution. It's so much simpler to just have a clipboard next to me and I see something in my head and I go, I want to draw that. And not most of the time it looks like garbage, but that's fine because the reason I'm drawing is because it's in front of me and I can do it right then and there. But also because I probably have something wrong with me and I value the things in my imagination more than things I see in reality, but we're not going to go into that. Drawing the side profile is pretty different. I won't deny that I'm a 3/4 angle apologist. I admit that it can look a little bit generic drawing that sort of angle because it's a good angle. It looks good. It makes your characters look good. Doesn't look awkward. You get a sense of perspective. There's some depth. I've been trying to get away from drawing generic things, trying to draw weird poses, sitting poses, lying down, side angles, those weird things like I can't even remember the name of it, where you have the camera like rotated at an angle, that sort of thing. Trying to do these different things just to spice things up, even though, you know, doing a generic pose it doesn't make you a bad artist or anything. It's just something I've done a lot, and so I want to do something different. This gigantic sheet of paper was originally meant for something else. It was going to be one of my I don't like saying original character, but like I have to be honest, it's just my OCs. To be fair though, like I think the difference between like an OC and just like your like a character is that people with OCs try to like role play or like live their characters in other parts of real life, like on the internet and stuff. Whereas these characters, like the things I draw are just there for me. They're just characters in their own space, their own world. If you look really closely, you could probably find the name of the character that was going to be on this sheet of paper. It might be a little hard because I wrote over it, but that drawing eventually got scrapped because I just couldn't figure out the pose for it. Like I was talking about trying to do different poses. I sketched out like 800,000 billion different poses and I just couldn't figure out one that I liked. And then I think at some point I ended up playing the game and deciding, oh, why don't I just draw Charlotte? And I was like, okay, sure, I can do that. and that's when I pivoted into this. So yeah, the paper is giant. I don't know why this paper exists. The relative I got this from, they worked at a paper products company or something, and apparently this is for like cardstock. So that explains why it's so thick, and it's probably so large because it's for printing things and then cutting. But I saw them with this paper because I was helping them move, and I was like, oh, that looks cool. That'd make a cool drawing. So I asked them for it, and they gave it to me. Annoyingly, I started another drawing for another character, but I don't have that many sheets of paper of this exact size, and I want them to be the same size because they're from the same thing. So I have to be a bit picky because some of those sheets of paper they certainly look aged. They have like scuff marks on them, or parts are peeling. I would only say there's only like 2 sheets that are particularly viable, and one of them is, I have a sketch on it right now, so hopefully that turns out well. The big drawings are fun because you really get to like suss out a lot of like the little details. I love putting in like lots of shading and these little like wrinkly bits, especially with like clothes and hair and stuff. Large is definitely annoying because you have to draw more, and because your hands can't sit like straight because the things are so big, it's harder to like get the scale right and the positioning of things. It helps to sketch things out on a smaller sheet of paper where your hands can reach everything, so it's easier. And then when it's time to draw on the big thing, you look at it and you go like, where does the head start? And the head starts, yay from the margin, and you look at your big drawing and you're like, okay, we'll start it around here, and that simplifies things. I do miss having the lasso in digital artwork, and layers, all those very convenient things that make sketching things out consistently and like easily. It's just so nice. Having to erase things, especially on my desk, because I don't have a bin nearby, so I have to just like pile shavings next to me and then throw them out whenever I feel like it. The eraser I have also is from Muji. It works pretty well. This room has the shitest lighting ever. I can't escape that it probably looks terrible in the recording, and it was terrible for my eyes to look at because my lamp is off to my side and it just casts the giganticest, hugest shadow over the drawing. And when you're shading in black graphite and when you're drawing in black ink pen and the shadow is being cast over it, it can be a little hard to get the details right. That sort of segues into my thoughts on professionalism. Despite being what most people would call an artist, I don't really think of myself as one. And it's particularly because I hinge on this idea of being the professional. I don't do things that I imagine other artists would do or would know. Like, I don't follow a lot of artists. I don't like watch videos and tutorials about like trends and new techniques. And that like reflects in what I do. Like, the way I've learned to draw is I've just been doing it. Because like I play a lot of games and that's it. I used to read manga. I have some on my shelf from back in middle school and high school when I used to read them more, and I read them particularly because I liked the art in them, and that art was like good inspiration for me. There are even things on here that I probably would not tell other people that I've read because they're not kosher. We'll put it that way. But I got them because I like the art in them, and I use that art as my inspiration to draw other things. It's funny having to explain to people occasionally when I show them my artwork that I don't really watch anime, and I don't read that much manga. The only anime I've ever watched fully, and this is not something you should do, because I watched this when I was in middle school, but the only one I've watched fully was Panty and Stocking with Garter Belt. That's the only one I've watched completely through, and that was a long time ago. I've watched a bit Trigger makes good animations. I've watched a bit of Little Witch Academia because the memes. I've watched a bit of Made in Abyss because of Etrian Odyssey. I've been watching, in a radical change of pace, I sought out an anime called Don't Mess with the Video Society. Or I think it's called, like, Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken. Eizouken being Video Society, because the show is about a group of 2 gremlins and Kanamori who start a club to make an anime. It's kind of meta, but that show's pretty entertaining because it's more about the like development process of making a show and like all of the weird like technical details. It's like it's I've noticed like a sort of a genre that's like pseudo educational content where it's like it's focused on a niche of some kind of work or skill or part of life, and it's like it gives you those details that you don't normally know about, but sort of frames it in this sort of entertaining way. Like I think Eurocamp is sort of like that, which is a show I haven't watched but I've heard of, and that show's about camping, and so it's like survivalist stuff, but it's framed as like, I assume it's framed as like a slice of life thingy or whatever. But so like, to get back on track, I don't follow a ton of like professional sources for drawing. I took art class in school, like I took the elective, but I don't know what I'm doing. Like I don't, like, critically I don't know what I'm doing. I have always been a really slow artist. I've always made like lots of mistakes and I've never been super consistent. Like, so like as an example, so I made the mistake where I drew the sleeve over the leaf, where the leaf should have been over her arm. And like, so like a serious artist probably wouldn't have made that mistake. So I asked my friend about this. Well, not really asking for a solution, but I just showed it to her. And she was like, oh, why don't you buy white ink and draw over it? And it's like, okay, that's smart. That's like whiteout. So I went to Michael's and I bought a white ink pen and I drew. The one smart thing I did was I tested it on a separate sheet of paper to make sure it didn't ruin the drawing. And as it turns out, the white ink pen would not cover the black ink. And so I thought to myself, well, this is like a roller pen. It was from the same brand. It's a Jelly Roll like Pigma pen, but it's white ink. And I was like, okay, well, maybe that wasn't the intention for this pen. So I went back to the store and I bought another pen. I think it's like a Faber-Castell, like white pen, and it's like a felt marker pen. So I brought that home and I tried it, and it didn't work again. So, I ended up talking to my friend again, and I was like, "Oh, this doesn't work. I guess maybe it's just not. It just wasn't meant to be. You know, there was something wrong with me, as usual. The common errors in life. It's all in your head, Luigi." It turns out you have to use like a different kind of ink. So the archival ink in the Pigma Microns or in the Imuji pen are like, it has an activator in it, and so the activator, another ink, will just reactivate it and it'll just smudge it. So you have to get like acrylic ink, which will just cover it. And they didn't have that at the store, so I just left it. I just left it as is. But it just, those sorts of things just sort of show how much I know about the things I do and have been doing for my entire life. Maybe that just shows how I do things in general. But yeah, I haven't, like, I know how to use my tools. I just don't know like about them very much. I just draw, and like if something works, I'll just do that again, and if I forget how to do that, then I'll learn it again. I'll just start drawing, and if I find something that works, I'll just do it. it does give me some concerns about consistency for the future. Consistency has been an issue for me, something that I haven't always been able to do a lot with my drawings, like making characters look the same when I draw them twice. The reason that's concerning for me is because I would like to make a game at some point, and that game is going to need art assets for it. And like, I'm gonna want things to look consistent, I like a little bit at least, because some people might care about that. I mean, to be like the earnest answer is, who gives a shit about what other people make? Make the game for yourself, and like that's fine. But I also want people to enjoy it, and I wonder how much people would care about that sort of consistency thing. And like other professional things, like I always think to myself just how much I don't know about what I'm doing. What could other people be doing with their art that's like different from what I'm doing, and also like what's like expected from people? Like, what are the standards? I know some people are very like, they don't care about standards. They say like, you need to be innovative, you need to be brand new, well, whatever. I'm always thinking about what's standard. Maybe it's because I have like a rules-based mindset with like everything. But it makes me wonder, like, am I doing things in a way that a person would, like a person with a keen eye or even like an untrained eye would be like, this looks or feels immediately different from something like that a quote professional would do, because I'm not doing these like invisible things that they would be doing. It's all very like hypothetical, but I just think about that often when I do anything, really. Like when I make a video or when I'm recording voice, like, am I doing this correctly? Am I doing this the best way? Am I optimizing the way I'm using my tools? I don't know. I don't even know where I'd look. That's something that I get frustrated with when I was trying to learn how to game dev. Like, I installed Godot at the behest of my good friend, and it's like, other than his encouragement, like using Godot seems like a good idea because it's open, it's free, it's extensible, you can do other things with it, any kind of game, and it's not like you're not going to pay a license to Unity or Epic Games or whatever. But it's just frustrating, like turning on that program and seeing all these things and not knowing anything, and just the fear that I could start making something just Googling like something like, how do I do this, and then doing that, and then making a game, being like days, weeks, months, years into something, and finding out on a whim that I've been doing something wrong. With art, I don't really have that problem as much, because like your style changes a lot, and I'm pretty satisfied with the level that I can draw at right now. Like, the bar always goes higher, and I'm certainly not that great at what I do compared to like some of the great things you can find out there, like really professionally done things. One thing that sort of serves as inspiration for this is, well, so it was Easter earlier this year that I went out for lunch with some of my classmates, and during that trip we went over to a bookstore that I have never been to in my whole life. It's a pretty strange thing to think about, that I wasn't super interested in the books, even though the thing I went to school for recently was libraries. But while at the bookstore, we looked around and we saw some things like, oh, okay, these are alright. And then we went into the used section, and I saw on the shelf like a collection, like a collector's edition for Hilda. And Hilda, I was aware, was a cartoon show. I wasn't aware that it was originally a graphic novel, so when I saw that on the shelf, I was instantly drawn to it because it has a very, very distinct style to it. And so I bought it and I read it, and something that interested me in that book is that the author has some sort of behind the scenes draft images sort of placed throughout the like in between the chapters. And I think that seeing that really got me thinking, how hard would it be for me to make like a graphic novel or to do like a web comic or something like that? Because I went and bought the rest of the books in the series. There's six volumes, and each of the books in the collection have 2 volumes each, so there's 3 books. And I bought them all. And it's really interesting because you can see the way the style of the author, Luke Pearson, you can see the way his style develops over time. Like the first volumes look very different from the last volume. And that's really interesting because like the books are really enjoyable and the comics are, despite them looking so different and so like off model in like those early chapters, which I guess begs the question of how much does consistency matter? If you can make a book like that and it be enjoyable to the point that now it's been adapted to like a continuing like TV show, and there's like novelizations of these things, like it worked. How much that can be attributed to specific factors, I don't know. You know, there are lots of web comics out there. There are lots of physical comics out there. Like why aren't there more Hildas in the world? With how many artists there are, it's a question that's a bit too big to answer just on my own. But I have been seriously thinking about putting my art to use in something like a novel or a comic. I don't know how hard it is to make something like that. It's probably a lot harder than I imagine, like everything in life. Certainly maybe not as hard as making a game, but I think the making of the game is something that interests me more right now, and making a graphic novel would be something that is more of a long-term. Making a game is already long-term, but I'm talking like when I'm 50 and I need something to do, I'll probably be drawing stuff there, and you know, maybe I'll be making a comic. I don't know what's gonna happen. Right now, I finished this drawing with Charlotte. The next thing on the docket is the Henri drawing, which I started. Annoyingly, I started it on a sheet of paper that was smaller than the Charlotte one, so I had to redo it on the bigger paper, which is sitting over there and will get worked on at some point. I am recording it at a lower frame rate, so it's not going to consume my entire hard drive to store. But other than that, I also have to think about work, real work, now that I'm out of school again for the second time. Or I guess this is the third time, because I finished high school, then my first diploma program I finished, didn't find work there, and I did another diploma, and now we're praying to the forces that be that I can make something of it. Out of all of the things I did in this drawing that I probably regret doing is the hair. The shading of Charlotte's hair was an ordeal. And an ordeal that I willingly set myself into. I regret how long it took to do. It was definitely the hardest thing to do in this whole drawing, with how much there is of it on the page. But the thing I probably regret most is that I shaded her hair in, and if you've seen the game, you might realize that the defining trait of Charlotte's like whole visual design is that she's like white. Like, she's not like a white person, she's literally, her colors are all just white. So having her hair shaded in like that doesn't really give the impression of what she looks like in the game. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. To me, it sort of doesn't. It just comes off more that she's like just got like really shiny hair, but I don't know. I do like the shading effects. I think it looks cool, so I can't complain there. The lighting in the drawing is a bit weird. I originally intended to have it be just rim lighting, so the moon in the background would have been the light source, and so most of her face would have been shaded, because that would have looked very dynamic. I think it would have looked cool, but I figured out it would look terrible to try and shade her face in with pen. That's an effect that I think works best if you have color, like to sort of give that impression of depth and shade a bit more, because with black and white pen you really can't distinguish between whether something is like a color fill or whether something is shading. You can by sort of having like a gradient from light to dark, but in this case, if I did the rim lighting with her hair, with her head, the worst case scenario is it would have looked like she was tan, and that would have been even wronger than having her hair not be white, so I decided to not shade her face in very much. But I did keep the moon just for having contrast in the background. Maybe it would have looked better to fill that moon in and have her head stick out a bit more against a black background, but I think it looks fine that way. Speaking of the background, I filled in the background with a Pigma pen. It's like a number 1 pen. It's sort of a basic pointed tip brush, or a felt tip. It's not a brush. In previous drawings, I have filled in backgrounds using my writing pen. It's a bit sad that Muji doesn't sell this aluminum shell for the pen, because it feels really nice to hold, in my opinion, and it's sort of a good baseline as like a long-term commitment pen to just have this nice shell that you like, and then to fill it in with whatever refills you can find. But I can't find this on the store anymore. But previously I would fill drawings with this in like a 0.3 pen, which is a little inefficient, so suffice to say. So that's why I've switched over to using the marker at the behest of one of my friends. I don't usually draw with the felt markers because I find I get really ugly lines with it. I think maybe that's partially because it's hard to get like tapered lines with a pen, with a marker pen. A fine liner is the word. But also because I have really shaky hands. I think that having a pen that doesn't that you need more force to press to get like a really dark line in helps to offset my shakiness, so that, you know, when my hands are shaking, the pen isn't like pressing super hard, so you don't see all those mistakes as much. Even then, when I'm drawing straight lines, I don't know, it might just be the friction is different using a fine liner compared to just a regular pen. I feel like I just get really ugly lines when I use a fine liner. I don't know. I recently bought these PN microns, which have a plastic nib, and I find that this is a lot more fluent to draw on. It's sort of like a nice in-between between having pen and a fine liner. You can control it with your pressure a lot more, so you can get lighter lines and you can darker, thicker lines. The big selling point for me is that it's plastic, it's durable. I've like noticeably damaged some of those microns, and that's just like from a drawing or two. I've drawn probably like 3 things with the number 1 marker I have, and I can notice the felt tip is sort of fraying a bit, which isn't good. I would like to find a longer term pen. I looked around for brush pens, but it feels like refills are kind of a hassle with those things. A lot of them need syringes, which I'm sure come with the things, or maybe you can find them for cheap online. But I prefer the idea of just buying like a bottle of black ink and then just refilling it, which is one of the things that Micron really benefits from. It's not a advertised feature of the pens, but you can crack open the back, so the back ends have this black cap on it, but you can pull that out with pliers. It takes a bit of force, but you can pull it out, and it's just one piece. And then the cartridge, in quotes, just falls out, and it's just a tube with felt in it, and you can saturate it with ink and then just put it back in. I have filled the number one pen I have. I haven't used it because I filled it after finishing the Charlotte drawing, and so I haven't had a need to use it. So we'll see if the refill has succeeded in doing what I intended it to do, which was to preserve the longevity of the pen, because that just seems like a smart idea. And so having this plastic nib pen is appealing to me, because if this pen lasts even longer than the felt ones and I can refill it, then that's sort of just like good, you know? The background is like a completely black fill. This is the third drawing I've done using that as a fill. I think a third one. One of those drawings I gave away to a friend, but so it's a little upsetting to see it run out so easily, but I guess I have used it quite a bit, considering you need to do multiple coats to get like a really dark fill in it, because if you don't, then you'll have all of this like unevenness and it doesn't look great. You just have to be careful, because with this much ink, it tends to bleed through the paper, and if you're doing a lot, you can start getting your paper so wet it starts to tear if you row over it again, so you gotta be careful about that. When this pen started running out, I went to Michael's as usual, and I bought Dr. P.H. Martin's Bombay Black. This is one of the ugliest labels I've ever seen on a product. I have this weird instinct that products targeted towards artists should not look this ugly, but it seems to be good ink. It got fair reviews, and I've heard of other people filling their microns with it. So hopefully with the next drawing we'll see if there's any like visible improvement. There's a pretty big time skip right when we move to when I start drawing the skirt in. There are some changes, there's some extra things on my desk, because this is during my internship. So you can sort of you immediately see the jarring like difference between like having drawn this in like March versus all the way in May. I don't even remember if the gap is even that short. It might have been like January to May. That's how long it's taken for me to bother doing this. Chalk it up to laziness, chalk it up to classes, and other games coming out, getting in my way. I've played just an abnormal amount of Earth Defense Force 6. I played a lot of Elin, the ever-growing trial to try and accomplish Oxygen Not Included. A Sisyphean task, if I might say so myself. As far as the shading goes, I'm pretty satisfied considering it's such a large drawing, and I haven't like shaded something this elaborately in a while. Her top, her like shirt, definitely I should not have shaded as much. I needed to make it stand out a bit more, because it's also just a stark white shirt. The skirt turned out pretty well, all things considered. Like, I did not have a plan for how it would look. Like, I didn't even consider if I wanted it to be like pleated the way it was, but it turned out well. It just goes to show again my whole consistency, improvised style of drawing and learning things. Charlotte's hair does sort of blend in with Freya in the background. That's sort of intentional because, well, not to get into spoilers so much, but they're very connected to each other. So having Freya look visually kind of similar to the streaks in Charlotte's hair, that was kind of intentional. How well it turned out is a mystery for now. And of course the flowers. I tried making the leaves a bit darker so they'd stand out a bit from everything else. Because it would look pretty, everything looks pretty homogeneous otherwise. But yeah, no. Overall, I'm pleased with the drawing. Maybe the proportion looks a little weird. Charlotte's head looks pretty massive, but then again, it's also like a side profile, and Charlotte's hair is just massive. Recently, I've been thinking about ways to store my drawings. I don't have a lot of space to put them. Most of my drawings are just sort of around. My smaller ones are in the books that I drew them in, or they're loose leaf, so they're just sort of somewhere. I can't even remember. Most of them are in a book that I've been using to draw things in. I have a couple of books. A lot of what I've been drawing recently is just sort of loose leaf from drawing on my clipboard. So they are somewhere. Usually when I want to draw something that I know I'll keep and I'll like put effort in, I'll draw it in a book so that there's somewhere consistent to keep it with a cover to protect it. But as for everything else, like as for this drawing, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I don't like want to frame it because it feels kind of egotistical to frame your own drawings. At least it does for me. So I'll just probably keep them on a flat surface somewhere out of the way. I tried buying a bag, but most like portfolio bags out there are designed for like canvas work, which is not what I'm doing. I just have sheets of paper and I don't need this giant floppy bag to keep a sheet of paper. Unironically, the best solution I've seen is to put it under your bed. Unfortunately, my bed underside does not exist. It's just, you can't put stuff there. So, what's gonna happen with this drawing? I don't know. So what's next for drawings? Obviously the Henri drawing is next. I started it, so I'm gonna have to work on that. I have promised a friend some drawings for them, which I should probably get to work on. Those will be digital, probably. So it'll be a good refresher back into that. And then after that, well, let me think. I am so utterly tempted to sort of draft what a graphic novel would look like. Something that I would make. That would be kind of an ordeal. I would like to draw something related to Project Moon, because one of these days, I know I'm going to go to the restaurant, to Hum Hum Pang Pang, which I'm aware that they allow people to leave their own merchandise, their own fan works at the restaurant for other people to take, or to just, I don't know, observe and admire. I would really like to draw something for that. And I'd probably need to do it ahead of time, because there's absolutely no way I'm going to be able to draw that in, like, if I was only given like a month's notice. I mean, I think I could, but I'd probably go crazy doing it. But yeah, I have some videos to work on. This video is probably going to come out before the actual video for Hello Charlotte. Just because that's going to take a while to edit. There's just so much footage for that game that I have, and so much that I have to talk about, and it's not like this where I can just ramble and not have to think about what the visuals are going to look like. I would like to make a video related to Elin, probably some kind of guide for it, because that game is hard and stupid. I've thought about making a guide for Oxygen Not Included, but honestly, I am not qualified to make that video. Not until I can like actually make a base worth talking about. It doesn't help that I play that game pretty heavily modded, so it would not be consistent for everyone. I would have to learn how to make spawns and liquid locks, and I just hate that shit so much. Anything that slows the game down like that, it's just... I'm just not a fan of it, man. That's pretty much all the ramble I had left in me. I don't know where this video is going to start or end, or how much of this it will take up that. I mean, I've been talking for nearly a goddamn hour, so it's gonna be a pretty long one. But I sort of just wanted to make something that you could listen to, sort of podcasty, because it's a big drawing, so I figured something a little bit more interesting than just music would be fitting. But yeah, if you've been watching, thanks for watching. If you've been subscribed to my channel and been like, when is this guy gonna make stuff? I promise I'm drawing things. It's just that not a lot of it can be content. So I've been trying to upload it more to like community posts. I'm sort of figuring out having a place to like as a repository, because I feel like all the sites kind of stink right now. I found a site called Catbox, I think that's what it's called. That's sort of just like, it's one of those repository sites. Because like DeviantArt is, I don't even know if DeviantArt is still around. I really don't feel like uploading my drawings to X/Twitter, even though from a marketing standpoint, I guess maybe that would be the best place to put it. I'm hesitant to put my drawings on Instagram because I hear that you sort of lose the rights to those when you post them, at least those specific pictures. So that would not be fun if someone were to like copy my drawings. Not that I care that much, because you could do it anyways on any site, but I'm just not a fan of the of the Facebook machine, I guess. I'm not much any more of a fan of it than the Elon Musk machine, but that's neither here nor there. I'd like to find somewhere to keep my drawings that's like a neutral entity. I have put my drawings on Pixiv, but Pixiv has kind of a reputation for being more of like an adult content site than anything else, at least from my perspective. And I don't do adult drawings, at least not right now. Maybe sometime in the future I'll do that. I'll start doing that, but not right now. But yeah, if you've been watching and still like interested in what I do, you know, thanks. I appreciate it. There's a lot I want to do, and not a lot of it is like about building the biggest audience. I just sort of do things as they interest me, which is why I spend a lot of time playing games, which I know is really lazy. When Endfield comes out, I'm probably going to be stuck doing that for a while, which will be a hit to my productivity even more, but we'll see about it. Maybe I'll just have to drop like normal games for a while. Find some way to schedule my life to be more productive, in quotes. That'll do it for my ramble. If there's any more video left, please enjoy, and otherwise, again, thanks for watching. I'll see you whenever.